This is Melody. I'm from Toronto, Canada, as Chapters President for Lacuna Learning, a non-profit global writing organization. Today, I will introduce you someone who is heavily involved with writing in my community. Her name is Romina Maurino, and she is a freelance journalist and writer whose work is based in business and finance. Mastered in the writing community, Romina has also covered politics, current events, and arts, lifestyles, etc. She will be speaking from her experiences to her work to recommendations and many more. Here she is. Thank you for being with me today. Can you tell me how you began writing?
Thank you for having me, Melody. How did I begin writing? I think I've always wanted to write since I was probably 12. It's something that I always enjoyed doing, but I don't think I took it seriously as a career for a long time because I think, in our world, people often say, you should do science, you should do business, you should do different things. That's like a real job, right? Versus writing. I sort of tried to listen to that, but I always had a very hard time because I loved writing so much. And it's not just obviously the writing, it's the storytelling, it's the curiosity, it's the ideas, it's all the stuff that comes with it. I initially, when I went to university, I went to Queen's and I initially minored in English literature. I was majoring in psychology because it seemed more legit. But halfway through the first semester, I switched over to literature, and I ended up going into journalism after that because it seemed like a more kind of like a job way to do writing, right? Where you can get paid and it was like there was a clear path. So I did that for a lot of years. I worked for 10 years at the Canadian Press, covering politics and business and news, and it was amazing. But eventually, just for a little bit of a better, work-life balance, I started freelancing when my kids were little. And that was really interesting to me because I think, again, it was the kind of thing where people said, how are you going to make money doing this? And I think once I started freelancing, I just saw how many opportunities there were, because no matter sort of what magazine or what company or who you're dealing with, everybody needs to be able to get a message across. And when you can write well, then you can do that for anyone. So it was very cool to see how many options there actually were.
So did the opportunity come to you very quickly, or did you have some ups and downs because there was like some competition in between?
No, it's always ups and downs. I would say, like, it's never, one of us, I sort of said in my previous answer, I think one of the main sort of obstacles was myself and just the belief of whether I should do it, whether it was the right thing, and sort of maybe listening to other voices instead of listening to what I was actually good at and passionate about. And then I think once I joined, I was, university was fine, that was all fine, but I think it's a hard field to break into. Journalism especially now is a lot different than even when I started. But what I found, there's always sort of like an answer, right? There's always like a way to do it that is maybe a bit more direct. So what I found after I did a BA and then a master's in English literature, and I was working for this little publishing company, and I found things were not moving quickly enough. And I talked to somebody that I knew who actually worked at, well, it was then called Ryerson, it's Toronto Metropolitan University now, and they have a very good journalism program. And she said to me, you can spend 5 years trying to break into the industry on your own, or you can come do, it was like a 2-year postgrad degree, and then go straight from there. So I think it was good to sort of find a clear path, but then, there's journalism is so competitive, and there's a lot of, you may not think of it because you think like business maybe is more like A-type personalities, but journalism has a lot of them too. So there was a lot of, it was competitive, but I think it's like anything else. If you just work kind of really hard and if you're interested in what you do, you can kind of shine,
So did you promote yourself, or did you have a team behind you during that?
No. So I did journalism school, I think it was like 2004. So there was it was very different. I think what, right now, sort of being an influencer, being a social media, a lot of that helps a lot. When I first started, it was still, sort of in-person networking and sort of getting to know people and asking the right questions. For my freelance business, I don't have enough, probably the online presence that I probably should do more. The thing with journalism is that, if your work ends up kind of speaking for itself in a way. So, you're writing these stories, so your byline is out there. So even if you're not necessarily out there promoting yourself, everything you're writing is online. Everybody can see it. So anytime I talk to somebody, they'll go and Google me, and even if I haven't made the best effort, it's all out there for people to see.
I see. Thank you for that. So sometimes I get writing blocks where I could not possibly in any universe put words down on the paper. And I assume that has also occurred to you, especially it's your job and it's important, you're constantly writing. So what do you do then?
In my experience, if you are stuck writing a story, or if you're stuck writing, whether it's journalism, almost I guess it would be more for journalism, it's usually because you don't have enough information. So if I was ever writing a story and I felt like I didn't have enough, or I couldn't go on, or I was missing something, it was usually a sign that I needed to do more research or find somebody else to talk to or do a little bit more reporting so that then I had enough to write with. If you're doing it in other kinds of writing, if you're writing a profile or if you're doing more creative writing, I have always heard, and I have found myself, that something that helps is if you work on more than one project at once, so that if you get stuck on something, you can move on to something else, but you're still writing and you're still working and advancing, but you just kind of de-block a little bit, I guess, because you've done something different.
Okay. Since we're already on the topic of journalism, what issues would you like to write about in the future, or some that you would like to bring up?
There's so much. It's not a lot of what I write about right now, but it's definitely sort of much of what I want to focus on and what I'm sort of making plans to focus in the near future. Environmental issues, issues with immigration, and not necessarily immigration policy, but just the experience of immigrating and sort of what it's bringing some people's stories to the forefront so that maybe the policymakers can see the humans behind what they're putting together and what they need to face and what they need to do. And also, like I said, a lot of, I think, environmental causes I'm also interested in. I think everybody is and should be right now. So those are areas that I actually haven't covered a lot, but I would like to.
Thank you. What writer is your biggest inspiration? How does that writer make you feel that way?
I'm always terrible with this question. The same if you ask me what my favorite book is, because there's so many. I'm going to give you one that may not make sense. It's actually two. Two of my favorite writers. And this is not as, there are also a lot of journalists. Last the journalist, Stephanie Nolan, who used to be a foreign reporter for the Globe and Mail for a long time. She wrote some incredible stuff out of Africa during the, I think it was more in like the 90s and 2000s, and she's just incredible, like the depth of her reporting and how she gets to actually know people and how she gets these stories across. Like you feel like you really get to know them, and it's such a skill, I think. In terms of sort of fictional writers, it's a complete opposite of Ernest Hemingway and Sadie Smith. And Ernest Hemingway is such a very, in this day and age, somewhat problematic, right? Like if you think about him as a person, but as a writer, it's a very, very short, very to the point, very sort of reporter-like sentences. Sadie Smith is the complete opposite, and I think somewhere in the middle is where I'd like to be. So I find inspiration in both of them.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything you would like to tell like the writing community?
I think maybe two things. Like if for aspiring writers or journalists or any kind of storyteller, whether it's on social media or in paper or whatever, I would say like do it. Don't feel like you shouldn't or like you can't or like there's no value, because I think being understood, helping people understand themselves, helping people understand what's happening is one of the most valuable things that you can do. And just I think also don't underestimate the power of story and the kind of change that can create, and how important it is for people to know what's happening, and to kind of find ways to break through the noise so that people realize that there are like huge topics that they should be caring about that they may not even know are happening.
Okay, thank you. I'm so grateful for interviewing with you today. You've given me such a clear overview of what it's like to be such a fabulous writer and journalist. Again, thank you for your time and your honesty, and based on our conversation, I'm confident that you inspired many future writers.
Thank you so much for having me, Melody. Lovely talking with you.